Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to tell you about a most amazing and wonderful journey that I've been on in the last 10 years. It was a journey that I set off about 2000 to try and discover whether there were still any musicians who played the old roots of Afrikaans music. And there are two things in terms of roots of Afrikaans music, and that is, just firstly, when you think Afrikaans music, I'm not talking about the popular kind of Afrikaans music that you might associate with me and other members of the kind of commercial establishment, but a very old music that goes back hundreds of years in this country. One of them is, you get two kinds of musics, one being the dance music that accompanies the old forms of dancing, and one of the oldest South African forms of dance is real dance or kapara. And then the other are the old liedjies, which have Afrikaans words. Now I just want to show you a clip of some real dancing from the 1940s, which was shot on a farm near Laingsburg. That's real dance or para, and it's, as you can see, the 1940s, but it was first described in the 1700s, and here we have the Khoi dance, where the way that one of the first explorers described it was very much the kind of footwork that the real dancers are still doing today. Explorers like this man, Francois Lavala, in 1780, has a very, very accurate description of real dancing. Now, that music that you heard there is what's known as die plat reel, and it's still the most popular tune that goes with this kind of dancing. And what you were listening to there was what's called a blik viool, or a violin made from a tin can. So this one was made by one of the people I met on my searching and travels up in Namaqualand, in the Kamiesberge. His name was Jaapie Jaars, and he made this violin in 2001, as you can see, from an oil can. But please have a close look at the neck and the way that the head is carved, because it's almost exactly the same as one that was made by a Bushman prisoner in the 1870s. His name was Khabu, and he made a Ramki violin in 1871 from a wooden box rather than an oil can, because they weren't around yet. And so when you put them together, this is what he looked like. That was him. He was a prisoner taken to the Breakwater Lodge, and they where you enjoy the waterfront today. The lovely waterfront in Cape Town was made by these men in the Breakwater prison. They were prisoners. They were, of course, the problem. What happened to them is that they were almost completely decimated by the expansion of the farmers, the settlers, and the fight over water and sheep. Led these people, because they were starving, to steal and then, of course, get arrested and sent to the prison. Now, I'm going to play you a single-stringed Bushman instrument from the Kalahari called a segankuru. That's what they look like together, the two of them, so you can see how close, even though 130 years has passed, the violins are almost the same, and I would imagine that the music is almost the same. So we're talking about an old music here. This is older than the blues, ladies and gentlemen. So for us, you know, one of the ideas behind my search was to try and expose to South Africa that we have our own roots folk music. And it's not just Americans that have something like that. So this is the sekankuru. It sounds like the... Now, people think that these Blick violins are a copy of the European violin. I don't think so. I think these violins are an attempt to copy the sound. So if you listen to a 3-string Blick viol, listen to how similar it sounds. Okay, so I was influenced when I went to university in England by an American family, a father and a son called John Lomax and Alan Lomax, who set off in the 1930s to record roots American folk music, a lot of them in the prisons, and they recorded an enormous number of songs, and through that process, people like Woody Guthrie and Ledbetter became well known because of the work that they did. And so I was very inspired, and I thought that was something I'd like to do when I got back to South Africa. This was in the early 1970s. Of course, I got back and I did nothing about it. And many years passed until about 10 years ago, I was invited to become a presenter on a television program that went to meet guitar players of South Africa. It's where I first met Hannes Coetzee, who's going to play a little song for us soon. But so I went with a man called Jan Horn, and we traveled about 10,000 kilometers through this country looking for people, because musicians essentially, because you just don't hear about them, you don't see them, because this music has never been recorded, it's never been commercialized, and people have been marginalized because of the racism of this country. So we set off down roads like this, thousands and thousands of kilometers of road like this, and you'd come to little places like Stofkraal, because you'd heard that just maybe there was somebody down that road who still could play one of these old instruments or might remember some of the old songs, and you would meet someone like Frederik Andrews. That's where he lives. I don't think it's very ecologically sound, but needs some green ecology there, I think. And then this is Frederik and some of his friends, and they will play. You ask them if they will play you some music. Other people I met in the last 10 years, and quite a number of them, and I've had the opportunity of inviting them to perform alongside me on stages throughout South Africa, and in a project called Karoo Guitar Blues. And some of the best musicians were someone like Tokas. And he plays a very percussive style, often plays his guitar with just one hand. And that seems to be quite a sort of South African thing that we find up in Botswana as well as in the Great Karoo. And then I met the Mowers family. Oh no, sorry, that's Yapi Yars. And then the Mowers family from the Great Karoo who lived in Victoria West. What's interesting about the mowers is that Sina plays a guitar which is strung in a very particular way, that the second and third strings are played as one string, and her guitar is tuned completely differently to her husband's guitar. He uses a tuning which is called Die Swart Hel, and they managed to combine in a way that was absolutely amazing. Then there's and sitting next to me is Hannes. And then there was, you might have read in the newspapers, unfortunately she was murdered last year in a stupid farm argument. Her name was Helena Nieuwegeld, and her brother Koos Lof, who created the most beautiful and plaintive Karoo songs I've ever heard. Now, I was telling you about the tunings. This is what's really interesting about the musicians that I found who play the guitars. And the guitars are all tuned differently depending on who you speak to and where you might turn up. So each guitar player who has taught himself to play. This is what happens, is that there is people like Hannes tell me that when they were young, they were born on farms and they didn't get any schooling, and they were sent out to look after the goats and the sheep. And so while sitting there out in the veld, they would make themselves a ramkiki, a little guitar, and they would start to teach themselves how to play. Even if there was an instrument in the home, the parents or the uncle wouldn't allow the children to touch the instrument. So you had to learn by watching maybe what the older person did, and then going off and sitting and seeing if you could work out some kind of sound that would be good to the ear. And that's why I think the individual musicians started to tune their guitars in different ways. And so you find that they are almost open tunings, like I know from America, but they're not open tunings because you have to still press chord shapes. Now, we in the Western world use just a conventional tuning, which is called volseer in Afrikaans. But the kind of tunings that I came across were names like Naweek, Die Swart Hel, Langbeen volseer, halve seer, langbeen halfseer met 'n flat daarbij. And you'll hear that one soon. And things like binnekruis, kruis, sofa, and all of these different tunings. And I could go on and on about that as to why these things are different. But so I'm going to play you, and then each person, sometimes he plays you one song, which is in a particular tuning, and then you ask him to play another song, and he starts to tune the guitar all over again to a different tuning, so he can play that song, as is happening here. Nou maak je die snare pap, ne?
Ja, bietjie af.
Bietjie af, hè? Maar je ziet, je ken die pad, je weet waar om te gaan. Die langbeen volseer met die flat ook bij.
Ja.
that's Adam Kok playing the Nama stop. And he is a most amazing guitar player. And unfortunately, one of the few people I haven't been able to have on stage with me. But Hannes Coetzee is here on stage, and he's going to play us a song. So the first thing I want him to play for you, this is a conventional tuning that he has, and he'll play conventional chords. But he's going to demonstrate the right hand finger-picking style, which all over South Africa is called optel and knyp. Now, optel is the part that his thumb works the bass strings, and that's called optel. And his first and second finger will pluck the first, second, and third strings, and that's the pinching part, the knyp. So optel is to pick up the bass. He picks up the bass strings and he pinches the top strings. Okay, speel vir ons 'n optel en knyp, Hannes. Okay, now he's going to retune the guitar, because now the thing about Hannes, and I couldn't believe this when I first saw it, when I first met Hannes. Hannes, as a child, as a teenager, decided, sitting there on his own on a koppie in the Karoo, to play alone like that was just not on, and he wanted to create a sound that would sound like two people playing together. And so he thought about it, and he thought about it a lot. How could he come up with a way that sounded like what we call a voorspeler and a slaner? And so someone who plays in the front and someone who accompanies him. And so Hannes developed a technique which I have never seen anywhere else in the world. And so I thought it was absolutely unique, and a small video clip was put on the YouTube by an American, and it became an overnight success. He became a cult hero on the internet, and we got an invitation to go to America about 3 years ago to attend a slide guitar workshop in Seattle, so that Hannes could teach the Americans how to do this magic thing that he does. So this is teaspoon slide guitar, and he's going to play a song of his called Mahala. Hannes Coetzee.